All right, welcome in everyone to the Park Life Podcast. I'm here. I'm Janelle, and I'm here with,
And I'm Mike.
and we're here to bring you crowd information. I don't know. Did we decide? Is it going to be just at Disney World?
I think for tonight we'll focus on Disney World.
We're going to focus on Disney World crowds. So there you go. It's all you, Mike.
All right. So while she introduced herself as Janelle, if you don't know us, Janelle is a local in Orlando area. She is at the parks 4 to 5 times a week on average. She goes live on TikTok at times and also on YouTube at times. So her social media sites are all Disney Parks with Love, and you can get to her at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Pretty good there, huh?
Yeah, you got them
And
all.
I am Mike. I am not a local. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I am a travel advisor that specializes in Disney. I also do Universal and other destinations. So we are doing this weekly to help answer questions, engage conversation with folks. And tonight happens to be a podcast night. So tonight we're going to focus on Disney crowds and crowd calendars specific to Disney World.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, there are a variety of crowd calendars. I'll hold this up. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is one crowd calendar. There are probably a dozen different crowd calendars that you can find if you go out and Google Disney World crowd calendars.
Yes.
You would think that that would be simple enough just to do that and you get the information and away you would go. But they're all different. Each company that produces the crowd calendars utilizes their own algorithms, their own metrics as to how they create those crowd calendars. Sometimes they might use 5 years of information. Sometimes it may be 10, could be 20. Each algorithm is different, and so the output that you get is going to be different when you look at those. I'll pause and let Janelle jump in.
Well, I'd say when I was doing research, there seemed to be in between 5 and 10 that are very popular, but there's 5 that are out there that I think we, probably run into frequently. And the other thing I want to add to crowd calendars in general is that they're not always accurate and they should just be used as a guideline. And anything, because the lawyers told me to say this, anything that Mike and I say tonight, like it's not, we're not telling you this crowd calendar is what you should use and that your trip is going to be wonderful. So we're going to start with that disclaimer. And that's how you should go into using a crowd calendar in general. It's not going to be perfect. They're all a little different. And it should just be a guideline.
You're exactly right. And like I was saying, some of them might use 5 years worth of data to create, some 10, some 20. But we've just gone through a historical period in the last 5 years where all of the rules are out the window.
Right.
When we hit 2020 and the parks were closed for roughly 6 months during the COVID outbreak, that changed the rules drastically. When they reopened the parks, they opened the parks at 25% capacity. That throws off any and all calendar equations that are used by these companies. So the impact of COVID is cascading still 2-3 years later and impacting crowd calendars significantly. And they're all different in how they do them. You can look at one crowd calendar that has 3 ratings, green, orange, and red, or yellow and red. You can have one that's got 4. I've seen one with 5. I think I've seen a dark green, a light green, a yellow, an orange, a darker orange, and a red. So it's like 6 different categories. I've seen crowd calendars where they use a numbering system, where 1 might be more favorable and 9 might be incredibly busy.
Right.
So they're all extremely different in how they produce and provide that information, but understanding that they're all skewed at this point in time. What we have historically believed would be January and February, for instance, to be lighter crowds, 2024 has blown that completely out of the water.
Right.
So the COVID disruption has really changed the accuracy of the calendars. So as Janelle said, you can't utilize whether it's this one or any of the other ones. You can't really use those as the gospel, so to speak, that, oh, it's green, it's going to be a light crowd day today.
Right. Well, and so going into, just even the calendar and what they take into account, well, there's so many other factors too, just about visiting and what's on Disney's schedule, or, as we know, cheer competitions, all of those things that, that's another thing that adds to what goes into the crowd calendars as well.
Yes, and to that point, understand these crowd calendars that we're talking about, none of them are Disney World produced. These are
right.
External companies that provide these as a guide. But understand, and we've talked about this before, we all love Disney. Disney's a business, right? They're in the business of making money and growing their brand. Disney's not blind to know that historically January and February have been light park months.
Right.
They understand that. And so this past month in February, 4 weekends, the first 3 were cheer or dance competitions, and the 4th one was a Run Disney. Just last year, they only had 3 events in February. So Disney is well in tune with how the crowds ebb and flow, and they're making adjustments with external events that can help grow their business and the population within their resorts.
Right.
So that absolutely happens. But here's the other thing. We the collective we have always said January and February are lighter months. It's a great time to go.
Right.
Well, the collective them that was booking trips heard us and started to book for January and February.
Right.
So between Disney adding additional external events and the likes of the collective us saying, hey, those are slow months, come on down, people are coming on down.
Right. I mean, I also remember being in the park, and it was mid-February. Again, not only do we have cheer, great weather, all of the things. We have right here in Florida, Central Florida and Daytona, we had the Daytona 500. There's so many other factors. And now, we're coming up on golf is coming back, all in this area. And then, so you have those people who just want to take a day here and a day there. Oh, let's just head over to Disney. So there's so many external factors on the outside that aren't even Disney related, like the cheer or the run.
Right. You mentioned the Daytona 500. The Pro Bowl was down there.
Yep.
And you had NFL players in the parks, which is going to produce a crowd frenzy for sure.
Right. Right.
Now, so as we talk about these crowd calendars and to use them with a grain of salt, I don't want to suggest that you just ignore them, because there is value to be gained with the crowd calendars.
Right.
There are some consistencies in all of them. The week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, the week of Thanksgiving, you're going to see those as bright red as possible. So for the most part, on those crowd calendars, any one of the half dozen or dozen, when you find them showing red or a 9, if that's the high end, they're fairly consistent, because that isn't just an impact of COVID. That's historically Christmas is always busy. So don't discount that. A lot of these calendars, and this one here in particular that I keep showing you, I appreciate because they have posted on there when the cheer weekends are, when the dance weekends are, when Run Disney events are, all of those different things. They also point out when the holidays are. And you say holiday, and you probably think, well, duh, Mike, we all know when Christmas is. But do we all know for sure when President's Day is, when Martin Luther King weekend is? Those holidays have impact because the locals that are within a handful of hour drive are coming for a 3-day weekend when they can.
Right.
So the crowd calendars are good for that point.
Right. Did you see any of them that said like this is a Halloween party night or a Christmas party? Because I feel like once those start too, there's certain days that might be less crowded in a park over, and other parks might be more crowded. Are they, broken up like that, or is this just a general Disney World crowd?
From what I've seen, when they publish the 2024 calendar, that's it.
That's
they don't
it.
edit it, they don't update it, And as you know, we have no idea when the Halloween party nights are at this
Right.
point in time. We certainly don't know when the Christmas party nights are whatsoever. We can go off of historical data to know that these certain nights every week, Friday, for instance, is typically a Halloween party night. But until Disney publishes it, we don't know for sure. And
Right.
so that's a facet that twists away from calendar and it gets into the crowd aspect. And we can talk about that here in a little bit as well.
Okay.
And we probably should have said this up front. While tonight's conversation is crowd calendars and crowds, we will likely spin off to a couple of additional podcasts that tie into the crowd conversation about Genie Plus and how to best use that, rope dropping strategies, the different things that can allow you to maximize your time in the parks when they are busy.
Right.
I wrote, this is my unofficial crowd calendar.
Okay.
We now have busy, really busy, and holiday busy.
I love it.
That's about it.
I love it. And would you say, when you say holidays, are you including everything? Like, we're talking Easter, we're talking Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day.
I don't know if Arbor Day makes the list, but
Arbor Day. But Veterans Day, President's Day, those are those the major?
For the most part, I would say yes. I hesitate because Veterans Day moves. It's always on the 11th of November.
Right.
So if it's on a Wednesday, you may not see the same impact as you would, say, Memorial Day that's on a Monday where you're going to have a 3-day weekend.
Okay.
So that's why I hesitate with a Veterans Day.
Okay.
But any time, obviously your big ones, right? Easter, I'd say 4th of July is a big one. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, those big ones, they sit on a shelf by themselves. Then you have the 3-day weekend holidays like Martin Luther, Presidents, Memorial, Labor Day. Those are on the next tier of shelves. And then you've got like Veterans Day where, depending on where it falls, may or may not have an impact on crowds.
Right. And even though Halloween, is not an official holiday, do you put that in the top tier, or where do you put Halloween?
Yeah, I think Halloween's a tough one because the Halloween day itself obviously draws crowds, but the holiday season now is 10 weeks long.
Yeah, it
right?
starts in August.
Or last year it was mid-August through October, so you're looking at 10 weeks of Halloween holiday time, and so I think it gets diluted a little bit over that 10-week period.
Right.
If they only did a Halloween party the week of Halloween, that would probably be like Christmas.
Right. Okay.
I think that helps a little bit. So,
And
go ahead.
Valentine's Day for you?
I think that's on the shelf with Arbor Day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm going to get some hate on that one, I'm sure. So I'm going to go through a couple notes here that I scribbled.
Absolutely.
One thing I would highly recommend anybody looking at taking a trip to Disney, don't be fooled by hearing someone say, we always go in January and there's no crowds whatsoever. Well, Walt Disney World in 2018 or 2015 or even 2019 of January is far different than what 2024 looked like. I would venture to guess that even 2022 and even last January 23 did not look anything like this year. So don't get caught by somebody saying, oh, we always go in X month or X week and it's always dead. Because I think, and Janelle, you would probably agree, we heard a lot of people commenting how incredibly crazy busy January and February were this year when they didn't expect them to be.
Right. No, I do agree with you. And the other, I think, main comment that I heard was there's just no non-busy time anymore. When someone asks, when's the best time to go? Well, there's, very far and few between those really good weeks that we would have. Now I feel like it's 1 or 2 days in a week.
Right.
Like maybe a Tuesday and a Wednesday or a Wednesday and a Thursday, something like that. And that's what you're getting. So
you're absolutely right. And I think you're seeing this week, crowds aren't bad right now, but I would venture to guess tomorrow and Friday and Saturday you'll start to see them climb because spring break season really kicks off, I think, this weekend.
Yeah,
and will run for 6 weeks or so.
Right. The uptick of people is definitely on the way. And just like you said, it's been quite nice in the parks like the past couple of days. Even, being in Hollywood Studios to see a 60-minute Rise of Resistance at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not bad. Even Tower of Terror was 35 today, not bad. So it's
Yeah.
not going to be like that, in the
No.
upcoming weeks.
And I think I mentioned this. You know, the collective we keep saying January, February are slow months, and so the collective them have started to book those months.
Right.
So it's busier for that reason. And Disney has added more events in January and February than they've ever had before. So you're having an impact when it comes to that sort of thing. Absolutely. And frankly, and this goes more into crowds and less into the calendars, but I think those of us who traveled down there since COVID, we we came to enjoy and almost expect the 25% or 50%
Absolutely.
allowance of crowds, and now that they're up to 100%, people are, distraught about it.
Right. Absolutely. I might be one of those distraught ones.
I talked about like Veterans Day floating. I mean, it's always the 11th, but where it falls in the
Right.
calendar.
Right.
Easter is another really good example of
True.
that. This year it's early. It's March 31st. I think the last handful of years it was first week of April, even the second week of April. So that's another, I guess, value to these crowd calendars is those floating holidays to see where they fall within the week or within the month.
Right. I feel like another factor, again, and maybe this isn't so much of a factor, but again, those months that were, that no one ever thought of coming, maybe in the past, like the January and February, because, it might be cold, but in all reality, it's beautiful, beautiful weather in, January and February, and even the fall months, September, as far as crowds. And I think people have now caught on to the weather and said, we don't want to come in July. We'd rather come in January and February when it is not so hot and everything.
Right. And we have to then say a more comfortable temperature crowd in January is better than a hot and humid crowd in July.
Right.
And shouldn't
Right.
complain about the busier times.
Right.
There's these crowd calendars, again, are built on historical data. That's how they do these things. There's smart scientists somewhere in these companies that create these things. But
Right.
Disney does things that changes the rules, so to speak. And I'll give you two very prime examples.
Okay.
And we mentioned one of them already. In 2023, for the first time ever, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party started in the middle of August. That Disney changed the rules, if you will, on years of historical data.
Right.
Then you turn the page to the next holiday. Disney announced Jollywood, a brand new event.
Right.
That changes the rules. So again, we're going to have to understand that the historical data is going to change quickly.
Yeah.
And so again, these are only as good as data in. If you're a math nerd at all, data in is what allows them to produce data out, and the data is changing.
So I know you made a statement that Disney doesn't change their crowd calendar, correct? But do any of these other companies, do they make revisions to it?
No, I've never seen any of these other
Okay.
companies, and I probably didn't say that correctly, but these other companies, I've never seen them come out with a mid-year
Right.
modification to their calendar, and I've never come across one that at some point in time shows when the Halloween parties are, for instance.
Okay.
And I'll get to your comment about Disney's calendar here in just a second.
Okay.
There's, again, the rules changing. Once we got out, before COVID, if you were a resort guest, whether it was value, moderate, or deluxe, there were certain days you got early entry into one of the parks. There were certain days that you got to stay later in one of the parks. Post-COVID, Disney changed the rules. All resort guests get early entry 30 minutes to all four of the parks, but the late evenings are reserved for deluxe guests only.
Okay.
And it's one night a week at Magic Kingdom and one night a week at Epcot, for instance. And so again, they changed the rules and the impact is different. There's now if you're trying to maximize your time in the park, there might be more value in spending the money to stay to deluxe to get those extra evening hours.
Right. Absolutely.
So, one thing that's really important to do, whether through these crowd calendars or talking with folks that know the schedules and that sort of thing, is to stay up on the changes of the events. Like I said, last year there were only 2 cheer dance weekends in February. This year there were 3.
Right.
Those have significant impact on the schedules.
So how do you think, what would be your number one thing that you were looking for a crowd calendar? If you, Mike, was planning a trip and you were going to go to a crowd calendar all on your own, no help, what would you?
So that leads into where I was going to go next.
Okay.
And it may be cheating because I know what I know.
Right.
But the best indicator of a crowd calendar is the amount Disney charges for a ticket for any given day, January 1st through December 31st.
Okay.
The lower the price, typically the lower the crowds. That's why Disney is charging less, because they're trying to entice people to come.
Gotcha.
The higher the price, they're already crowded. They don't need to lower prices. So if I go through and I jotted all this stuff down, starting in March of this year through the end of this year,
okay,
the least expensive months are August and September. Prices range from $109 up to $149.
Okay.
The highest price is, probably no surprise, December, $149 to $164.
Okay.
So you're on the low end, you're paying $40 more per day per ticket in December than you are in September.
Okay.
So if you really want to trust a crowd calendar, so to speak, going out to Disney's website and looking at their calendar and seeing how much the low end and high end within the month of the price of the ticket is really a good indicator of when crowds are lower.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. I feel like we don't need anything else. Just go look at that.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, just looking at the low end prices, 109 to 149, 154. Actually, March low end is more expensive than December's low end. It's 154. High end is the same, but you clearly see March, April are really up there in price because of spring break.
Right.
It lowers some in May, June, July. Then it really bottoms out in August and September, and then you make October, November are pretty much even with one another price wise, and then December is back up higher.
Right. Okay. Well, look, no one's caught on to my after Labor Day. Don't tell anybody.
Well, and I know we talk about this, and I know whether it's in your live or other lives, I see people ask this all the time. When's the best time to go to Disney? Well, my first answer is, what's your definition of best time? Mm-hmm. If you absolutely love Halloween, that changes my answer. If that's what your motivating factor is. But if you're asking solely about low crowds, historically, and that's the best we can say is historically, from what we've seen on crowd calendars, what we see for Disney pricing, about mid-August through middle to end of September is still traditionally the lowest crowds from what we see in the calendars and the prices with Disney.
Okay. Okay. So that's how Mike. So if I were to go to a travel agent, and I don't want to do this on my own, are they going to be able to do something better than what I could see on a crowd calendar myself? I know as far do you have the same thing available to you, or are you, has Disney given you a better tool?
No, Disney does not provide better tools. I mean, the price ticket concept is the best out there.
Okay.
And it's available to anybody. But, again, and we get into this, and I don't want to go too far to this because it's not about crowds, but, now you have to value your time. And what is your time worth versus having a travel agent do all of that research for you and get back to when the least expensive times to go.
Right.
If you were to just say, Mike, I want to go in 2025, find the cheapest week. Well, do you want me to do that on your behalf at no cost to you, or do you want to spend that time yourself doing it?
Right. Right. Well, just check in, make sure you didn't have some magic little button that, Disney lets you push and, you know. But
If
so,
if it were that easy, everybody'd be doing it.
true. True. So, okay. What's your next note? Do you have anything else on this?
Well, I'm kind of moving away from calendar aspect and now just crowd aspect.
Okay.
If you're ready to convert to just
Yeah,
talking
sure.
crowds. So I've got a variety of tips for managing crowds. So
Okay.
look, we would all love to go middle of August to end of September when the crowds are the lowest. But that's not always convenient for everybody, right? Some folks, you're a school teacher, and so you have spring break or you have 6 weeks in summer to go, and that's all your availability is, or maybe during Christmas.
Right.
And so you have to manage that way. And so as a school teacher, spring break's going to be busy. We know summer's busy. We know Christmas is busy. So forget about the crowd calendars. You just now have to try to make the most of your
Right.
trip when you know it's going to be crowded. And as we talked about earlier, every season is busy season now at Disney. So you're in some ways better off planning a trip to try to maximize what you can do with the thought that it's going to be crowded.
Right.
You're better off, in my mind, showing up at Disney World thinking it's going to be packed and find out that it's not.
Right.
Versus showing up assuming it's going to be quiet because everybody said it's always quiet that week
Right.
and that it's not. Your experience will be horrible if you assume it's going to be empty and the park is crowded.
Right.
So, the first item on my list I actually am stealing from Janelle.
Ooh.
She has no idea what it's going to be though.
Rope drop.
No. You
Okay.
need to make sure you pack your...
Patient pants.
There you go. Patient pants.
pants.
Exactly.
They
Be
sell
patient.
them all
They-
over Amazon.
If that was a thing to sell, man, that'd be a great
Could you
market.
imagine? Oh, I
That
think
would be
we're
a
onto
great
something.
Market, yes. Again, prepare for the crowds to be there. So be patient. Understand that everybody's there for the same reason, right? They want to ride rides. They want to see the parade. They want to see the fireworks. They want to enjoy the magic that Disney World can provide. So we are all there for the same reason. So be patient. And we all know that we're all human, and some folks have shorter tolerance than others. Just accept that, and don't let somebody else's short fuse impact your vacation. The other thing, hydrate. And I say this whether you're going on July 7th or you're going on January 7th. Depending upon where you live, and I'll use me as the example, in the middle of the country, even though it's not humid in January or February down there, it's humid because here in Nebraska, there is no humidity in the winter. So you're going to dehydrate if you don't prepare yourself.
Right.
And again, if we're talking spring break, summer, Christmas, you're shoulder to shoulder with people. Staying hydrated, staying healthy will help get you through that week on your vacation, and it'll be more enjoyable.
Right.
Get a good breakfast. And I say this as somebody who typically doesn't eat breakfast. But you're on the go, you're on your feet all day. If it is summer, it's hot. Start the morning off with a breakfast that will help you out getting through
Right.
that day.
Right. Well, and I'm going to just take the eating one step farther to don't get hangry. You don't want anybody in your party to be hangry either. That's the worst as well. So, just avoid that. Get something to eat. Take the time out. And
And that's a great point, and I'm guilty of this.
yeah,
Know, and I don't mean guilty of this for myself. Know your travel companion's eating
Yeah.
schedule, right? I can
Yes.
go hours and hours and hours and not eat, and I don't get hangry, and I'm fine. One of my travel companions, a couple hours, and boy, I better be getting some food, or there's
Right.
going to be some unpleasantries. So know your family, know your travel companions, and,
Right.
and make sure that you're all taking care of one another.
yeah. I know for my personal family and the ones that I travel with, if I say I'm hungry, they have about 8 minutes. 8 minutes. So,
All right, so continuing on then with tips for managing the crowds. Arrive early and stay late. That's a huge benefit on both sides, if you can. And I say if you can because if you're bringing a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old with you and their bedtime is 8 p.m., don't force them to stay up till 11 when the park closes. You're going to ruin your vacation.
right,
But if you have the ability, go to the parks early. Not everybody is a morning person. I know quite a few people who aren't, and it doesn't matter how good and attractive it looks at the crowds that morning. They're not getting out of bed in time to get over to rope
right,
drop. So do that. A lot of times, and we see this when Janelle's there and others, the fireworks go off at 8 p.m. at the Magic Kingdom. By 8:30, there's a herd of people flocking out of that place.
right,
The rest of the park is wide open for you. So there's benefit of early and late. Find ways to pass the time when you're in lines for rides. Whether you have Genie Plus or not, thank you for the heart. Whether you have Genie Plus or not, in the busiest times, there's going to be a line to stand in. And so if you have stuff to help pass the time, it will help you. Whether it's games on your cell phone to help,
right,
engage others, playing I Spy if you've got kids, finding hidden Mickeys. Make sure you have snacks in your backpack. If you're going
right,
to stand in that line for 45 minutes, 45 minutes goes by pretty quick if you're snacking on something.
right,
If it's within your budget, get Genie Plus and purchase the individual lightning lanes. I know that it's money. I know that the trip is expensive. But if you look at the trip in totality, spending a couple $100 extra so
Right.
that you're not standing in line for an hour for every ride, you'll benefit. Your family will benefit. Your kids will appreciate it. So plan that. This, I think, still rings true. It's weird. You
okay,
know, we always talk about this. When you walk into the World Showcase, what's the debate, right? Do we go to
right or
Mexico
left,
or do we go to Canada?
all right,
The human brain, for whatever reason, for the most part, when we go to the Magic Kingdom and walk down Main Street, the lion's share of people turn, this is to my right, turn right towards Tomorrowland. Go clockwise. You will gain more when
yeah,
you get there in the morning. It's a weird concept, but I guess the brain works in mysterious ways.
but do lefties go left and righties go right?
I don't think that which hand you write with has
That's
bearing on
not,
that.
it's not the way your
I don't
your
think so,
brain
no.
works. Okay,
Nope. And I don't think you hitchhike with a different thumb based on being right-handed or left-handed.
okay,
Again, we're talking right now, if you've just joined us, we're talking about how to manage crowds. The example I'm using is I'm a school teacher, so I have spring break week, I have summer, and I have the week of Christmas to be there. So I'm going to go to Disney when it's busier than any other time of the year. So we're talking about how to manage that. Stay on property. Stay at one of the Disney resorts. You gain the benefit of early entry into the parks. That 30 minutes, it can be gold. If you get there in time, you can ride 2 or 3 rides before the gates open for the general public to get on rides.
right,
Take advantage of the free transportation. Again, it's busy, busy, busy. And if you're there in the summer, it's incredibly hot. You've been on your feet for 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. The brain needs time to rest. And if you have to get behind the wheel and drive yourself home after a long day and long multiple days in your trip, your brain is just overtaxed.
right,
Let Disney handle the transportation and driving you home. Plan a rest day. Again, we're talking about the busiest times of the year to
right,
be there. You're going to, when you're in the park, you're going to want to maximize your time. So early to rise, late to bed, get everything done that you can. A rest day will help the rest of your trip be successful.
absolutely,
This one, I don't think many people think about it and they don't do it, and it costs them time. And I'll admit, I'm one of them. And the last couple times I've been down there, if it wasn't for Janelle, I'd still be one of them. Mobile order your food at the quick
yes,
serve restaurants. I'm one of those people that I just walk up and stand in line to order my food, and Janelle's already sitting down with her tray of food, and she's looking around like, where in the world is this clown?
Yeah, why would you want to go stand in those lines?
Exactly. So mobile order whenever it's available. It will help speed up your time. Towards the idea of a rest day, if you don't want to sacrifice an entire day because you want to be in the parks, plan an afternoon break. And that afternoon break can be going back to your resort for some air conditioning, a dip in the pool, whatever. It can be finding a quiet place in the park to sit and relax. There are areas within all 4 of the parks where you can find seating under some trees and air-conditioned facilities and take a break. That 15, 30 minutes, or if you go back to your resort, hour, 2 hours of recharging the human body will not only get you through the rest of that day, but it'll help you wake up the next morning and start all over again.
Right.
Again, this goes to the financial aspects, but if you can afford it and it's a splurge, do the VIP tours. You eliminate a lot of the crowd. You're getting VIP services. You're getting to see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. You get right up in front of the line for a couple of rides. Again, if you can afford it, it's worth the investment. And again, we're talking about being there in really busy times of the year. The Disney after-hour events are a great way to maximize the time in the parks. Now, the price is steep. The after hours are like about a 3-hour window, and it costs about the same as a day ticket. Consider that being a rest day where you're not paying for a daily admission, but buying the extra hours park ticket. The crowds are incredibly low. If you look at social media, you'll see people that have been to these, and they'll say, I rode Guardians 4 times while I was there. Or I got to ride everything I wanted and some things twice. So yes, it's a high price for a short amount of time, but the crowd size is so limited that you can ride everything. This one, actually, as I was making my notes, it occurred to me. Again, we're talking about maximizing your park hours. Do your shopping at the end of the night. So if we look at Magic Kingdom, and we'll just use the example that the park closes at 10 p.m. Main Street and all those shops are open for at least another hour. So maximize your ride times all the way up till 10 p.m. and then do your shopping. A, you're not carving into the time you could be doing the park stuff. B, you're not carrying stuff around all day long. And C, you're already towards the front entrance of the park. It's a shorter route to carry that stuff out anyway. The next one, set realistic expectations. I've been to Disney dozens of times, and I've not seen it all and done it all yet. It's just a fact of life. If you assume you're going to do it all, you're going to be incredibly disappointed, and you're going to come home feeling like you had no magic and you spent all this money and it's disappointing. So set realistic expectations and understand you can't do it all. I know we talk about planning at times. Before you ever get there, identify what your must-do rides are. Whether it's yourself or if you're with a friend or family, identify your must-dos and make sure you knock those out so that everybody's really happy that they got to do what they really, really wanted to do. And then the things that they'd like to do, if you get to them, great. If you don't, you can always talk about the next time.
Right.
Be flexible with your plans. This is incredibly important, and I'll give you 2 examples that just pop into my head. Was it last fall where the back left side of Magic Kingdom was closed for half a day because there was a bear? There's no travel agent in the world who's going to have on their bingo card bear in the park. It's not going to happen. So if you can be flexible and understand that, well, we can't go ride Haunted Mansion or Big Thunder Mountain because that side of the park is closed. Be flexible. Same thing. It's Florida. It rains. And if thunderstorms come in, this happened at Magic Kingdom in the last 3 or 4 days. It was stormed for a while. And I looked at my Disney Experience app, and probably 8 to 10 rides were closed at that point in time because it was storming. So you have to be flexible and look at what is available to ride. Familiarize yourself with the park layout before you go. You can look at it online. The maps are out there. All of that information so that you have a general idea of where things are in the park, how to get to them. You might not know every nook and cranny in every small sidewalk, and this little shortcut here is better than going that way. But at least if you're familiar with the park layout, that will help some. And look, I understand that some people are navigationally challenged, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think she's listening, so I'll say this. If I gave my wife instructions, she couldn't find her way out of a paper bag. That it just happens, right?
Right,
but
right.
if you're with friends or family, somebody's probably a pretty good navigator. Make sure they know the park layout. It will help a great deal so that you can maximize your time. And then the last thing on my list is make sure you have the My Disney Experience app downloaded on your phone and use it before you ever get there. Go in and tinker around, see what there is to see, understand how it changes, find where the wait times are and how you can display those, so that you are as educated as you can be when you walk into that park for the very first time.
I feel like those are all great ways to maximize your time with the crowds. I mean, I think we can only stress it so much, and there are going to be days when you're just too tired to get out of bed and too tired even to stay at night for the fireworks, and you're going to have to adjust, you know. And I think until you're there and you're in it, and you're there with the weather, or you're there with the crowds, or, you know, a little 2-year-old, you know, any of the things you've never done before, well, you really get a sense of like putting all these things into action and why we stress them and suggest them, you know. So you never know how you're going to react to the heat or any of the things. And I think, you know, once you get there and you figure it all out, that's when you really figure out, like, okay, flexibility and patience is key.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm the kind of person that if we're there for 6 days, we're in the park for 6 days. I feel like we're spending thousands of dollars to fly down there as a family, that we want to maximize all that we can. But, and Janelle knows this probably better than anybody, you can have an entire day at Walt Disney World that is magical, full of surprise, full of things that your family will love, and none of that is inside of a park.
Absolutely.
You can do a full day's worth of activities that are things that you can't do back home, or if you can do them, they're just not the same.
Right.
And you can still view the fireworks. There are places outside of Magic Kingdom that allows you to see the fireworks. And so you can get, outside of riding the rides and seeing the parade, you can get a Disney World day without being inside of a park. And that's important to know, especially when you're there spring break, summer, Christmas, when it's as busy as can be. You can have a magical day and not have a lot of people around you. You can go over to the Tri-Circle D Ranch and go horseback riding, or allow your child to ride a pony. You can take a wagon ride.
Yeah.
You can go play putt-putt at a couple of putt-putt courses. You can resort hop. If you're there at Christmas time, you can go see the gingerbread displays at the different resorts. And then you can have a great dinner somewhere and either be at the Contemporary Resort or the Grand Floridian or the Polynesian and see the fireworks and hear the music for the fireworks as if you're inside the park.
Yeah. And I think that this gives us a good segue into a series that we'd like to do, and, you know, things to do outside of the park, using Genie Plus, doing things outside of the park, and all the things on how to avoid crowds.
Yeah.
Well, definitely.
And I know you said avoid crowds, but I think it's how to maximize your vacation when it's crowded.
Right.
Right, is really what we're talking about here.
True.
Yes, I mean, again,
I would love to avoid crowds, wouldn't we all?
Right, but like I've used the example, I'm a school teacher. I'm not, but I'm a school teacher, so I only have certain times a year I can go, and those are busy times. It's the same thing when I'm thinking vacation at Disney. I have children in the back of my mind, even though my kids are grown, just because that's the lion's share of the folks that are there are in that scenario where they can only go certain times a year, and they have children to account for as well. So, yeah, absolutely. If we could all go in September, where it's not as crowded, then maybe some of these things wouldn't necessarily be applicable. But if we all went in September, then it would be busy. Right.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add on crowd calendars for tonight?
I don't think so. Again, there's value to them. Don't live and die by them, but they will help point out the absolute high peak times of crowds, and they're all accurate that way. They will help point out the events that happen, the dances, the cheer, the dance, the run. Disneys. Now, I will note this though: these crowd calendars typically point out Run Disney events, which are Disney hosted. They typically point out cheer or dance. I've not seen a calendar that points out when there's a national soccer tournament happening, either at the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex or somewhere within Orlando. So, and Janelle mentioned this about Daytona, and we talked about the Pro Bowl. Orlando is a huge vacation spot in general. These crowd calendars typically look at Disney-centric things that impact crowds, not so much a Pro Bowl coming to town or the Daytona happening on the second Sunday.
Or what's happening at the convention center. Because again, you think of Comic-Con, MegaCon, we have all of those things that happen too, which then turn people, those guests then come to Disney as well. You know, I mean, we didn't even get into like Dapper Days and all of that. Those little days, you know, spread out that would cause an influx of people just, you know, on a Sunday afternoon.
You're exactly right. I mean, and you know, somehow, some way people find out that Bob Iger is going to be in the park, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 more people there that you weren't expecting. There's always those little nuances that no crowd calendar, no travel agent is going to have a crystal ball to know about. And that's why being flexible, having your patient pants pays off.
Good. Well, I appreciate all your hard work and looking up and printing your crowd calendar. So appreciate all of that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think Janelle kind of mentioned this. We're going to spin our next couple of podcasts in the vein of how to manage the crowds. We'll talk about Genie Plus. We'll talk about rope dropping, individual lightning lanes. We'll talk about some of those facets that tie into this. So instead of keeping you all on here for 4 hours tonight, we thought we'd break it up.
Yeah. Mike, you know, he's a talker.
If they don't know that by now, I've got them fooled.
So if you are just joining us and you're new to our podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't ever miss one. We don't want you to miss any of this valuable information. And again, thank you, Mike, for all of your knowledge tonight and all of your help and you know, just being you.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So I think what we're going to intend to do is kind of wrap up the podcast piece, but then we can probably dive into some questions that have been asked if you'd like. Yeah. I think we have time. Yeah, I think so. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Park Life Podcast. Perfect.
Bye, Mike.
Have a great night.
Bye.